In the far north of Brazil, deep in the savannah, there stands a circle of stones older than memory. Some say it is Brazil's Stonehenge, an observatory, a cemetery, a riddle written in granite. But the truth is stranger. These stones drink the sun, swallow shadows, and whisper to the dead. Tonight, we uncover why the equator itself seems to bleed through them. I'm Arturo, and this is Latin Laura. From Latin America's history to mysteries and true crime to local legends, whispering Latin intrigue. Every tale is triple verified in archives before it reaches your headphones. Hit subscribe. Fresh revelations drop every week, ready for your next campfire debate. They say the equator is a line on a map, an abstract cut across the planet. But there is a place in northern Brazil where the line becomes a blade, where morning light knifes through a hole in stone, and the savannah holds its breath to watch. It begins as a trick of the eye, one granite slab pierced as if by a giant's finger, another leaning like a lance, and then the sun slips exactly where it should not, as though someone, long before our calendars, taught the sky how to arrive on time. Just north of the small, rain-washed town of Calçoene, in the state of Amapá, a crown of stones rings a low hill above the Rego Grande stream. The circle runs a broad sweep, about 30 meters from rim to rim, and the slabs are not pebbles but pillars, granite lifted from the earth and persuaded upright. Some stand more than 3 meters above the soil, their weight undeniably in the tons. Step inside and you cross a threshold, a ring open to wind and rain, yet arranged with such care that you feel watched by the landscape itself. Archaeologists call the place APCA 18, or simply Rego Grande. Journalists, starved for shorthand, call it Brazil's Stonehenge. The comparison is a handle, nothing more. This circle is Amazonian, born of red laterite and blackwater creeks, the equatorial sun, and the company of the dead. Long before anyone stamped a site code on this hill, curious eyes passed here and tried to make sense of it. In the late 19th century, the Swiss naturalist Emílio Goeldi moved across Amapá's far northern coast and inland rivers, sketching stone arrangements and funerary pits. Others followed: Curt Nimuendajú in the 1920s, Betty Meggers and Clifford Evans in the 1950s, reporting granite blocks at scattered sites and a distinctive painted pottery that seemed to tie those sites into a single cultural fabric. Then the trail thinned. The savannah took back its secrets. The stones went on being stones. The pause ended in November 2005 when two young archaeologists, Mariana Petry Cabral and João Darcy de Moura Saldanha, were coaxed to visit some stones stuck in the ground. They expected curiosity. They found a monument. A small state team clambered up the hill and realized they were standing inside a megalithic circle. A meteorologist among them, Elias José Avila, squinted along one thin monolith and noticed a curious possibility. At the December solstice, this stone might flirt with the sun. It was only a hunch then. Later measurements would bear it out. The governor announced the discovery to television crews. Schoolchildren swarmed the hillside. Guides rehearsed narratives. The archaeologists found themselves in a public conversation, not a quiet dig. Local men stepped forward with their memories. Lailson Garafinha, Camelo da Silva became an informal guardian of the hill. Roseno Sarmento dos Santos spoke of burial pits he had once opened, not understanding their meaning. This was not just a scientific endeavor, but a shared journey of discovery and preservation, with the community playing a crucial role. What had been private science turned into shared stewardship. Radios hummed with call-ins. Fourth graders watched as archaeologists brushed dirt from painted urns and, more importantly, watched as adults learned to say, "Please don't sit on the stones." This shared stewardship is not just about physical preservation, but also about fostering a sense of local pride and connection to the past. Suppose you want to know what archaeology looks like when it works. In that case, it looks like this: a community seeing itself in the past and deciding together not to let it slip away. From the beginning, Rego Grande demanded a kind of humility not all monuments require. Digging is not the past. A trench is a question. A report is a decision about which questions to ask. The site did not come with a script. The town learned to help write one, and to argue, politely mostly, about what the next page should say. The poetry of the place, the ring, the wind, the savannah's vast horizon, sits on top of engineering as practical and patient as any bridge. Excavations around one tall monolith revealed a body with bones, the pillar sunk into a prepared pit and shimmed with granite, a plate of laterite turned to brace the lean, smaller stones placed like knuckles to stop a drift. These were not stones stuck in the ground. They were stones that knew where they were going, a testament to the meticulous engineering and planning of the ancient builders. Monumentality is often described as a feeling. Here it is also a technique. Granite is brutal to move and stubborn once set. The builders learned both truths and made a grammar of them. Set into laterite, brace with shims, lean to the sky you mean to keep. Then comes the performance, the reason the savanna still holds its breath on certain mornings. In late December, as the sun leans toward its southernmost point, one slender stone appears to lose its shadow, north and south bright at once, as if the rock were drinking light. This alignment is significant as it marks the December solstice, a key event in many ancient cultures. At dawn, two other stones and the rising sun line up with a precision that makes coincidence look poor. There is a slab with a carved hole, a perfect dark eye, and a needle-leaning monolith that aims like a spear. At equinox, the shadows walk in different directions than in December, changing scripts for a different sky. To stand here on those mornings is to feel the calendar as sensation rather than page, time as an angle, season as a line of light. The Portuguese megalith specialist Manuel Calado, who has stood on this very hill, is blunt about it. The alignments are real. The stones were placed with the sky in mind. The builders were keeping time by the only clock that never breaks. A place aligned to the heavens is also a place taught to grieve. Beneath and around the circle, the earth opens into cylindrical pits with lateral chambers carefully cut into laterite. Into these, the living place the dead, sometimes in richly decorated urns painted red on white, sometimes in anthropomorphic vessels with quiet faces. Offerings gathered above and about, bowls intentionally broken and spread like a skin of sherds, small pots tucked at the feet of standing stones. Polished stone axe blades without signs of use, interred as if prestige itself were a promise. This site was not just a physical structure, but a place of deep cultural and ceremonial significance, deserving of our reverence and respect. None of this is domestic, all of it is ceremonial. The ground reads like an archive of ritual actions repeated and revised, a culture talking to its ancestors with things instead of words. The circle is a clock and a cemetery. It tracks the rains and tends the dead. That is not a contradiction, it is the point. Early radiocarbon tests suggested a peak around 1,000 years ago, when megalith builders along Amapá's north coast seem to have been especially active. Later dating widened the window, roughly 1,100 to 300 years before present. That means centuries of visits and revisits, rain announcements, burials, oaths, and feasts beneath the same granite accents where earlier hands had poured earlier offerings. If the ring looks still, it is because we see it in a single frozen moment. In its own life, it pulsed. The pottery confirms a broad horizon, alongside the classic Ariste style, red figures on white fields, incisions, mottled faces, were sherds that came from far-flung neighbors, Coriabo from the upland Guyanas, Temir near Cayenne, Hertenritz and Barbacoeba from French Guiana and Suriname. These are not souvenirs, they are signatures of gathering, proof that people converged from river to river for rights, leadership, alliance, and marriage, then dispersed again with new obligations. Some archaeologists now argue the megalithic rings were ceremonial hubs in an archipelago of small villages, not the footprint of a single vast city, but the beating heart that made a region feel like a people. Once you know where to look, you start to see circles everywhere. Rego Grande is not a loner, but a complex. 5 megalithic areas stride the hills above the stream within easy walking distance. Beyond Calçoene and the old contested coast between Brazil and France, the list of sites swells past 40, most perched like islands on the crowns of low savanna mounds. Some circles are just a few meters across, others match Rego Grande's great hoop. Some are built of 2 or 3 stones, others count over 100. The variety is as telling as the repetition. A grammar is nothing if not rules you can bend. These builders spoke one language of stone, and it had accents, idioms, and local jokes. If you are tempted to draw a neat hierarchy, think again. What the earth shows is subtler, a network of sacred neighborhoods, a people who needed places to anchor what they knew and loved against a sky that turns and a river that rises. From the day the governor's microphone turned the hill into a headline, the past became political. Who would keep the artifacts? Where would they be displayed? Which stories would be told? Again and again, the answer many locals wanted was here, if here was given the tools. In 2024, Brazil's Heritage Institute IFAN signed a protocol with the state to musealize Rego Grande as the Parque do Solstício. The goal is simple and complex: to conserve the hill and open it properly, stewarded with and by the people who live within earshot of its stones. The plan is not to impose a new meaning, it is to protect meaning while research goes on. It implies the savannah will still hold its breath on the right mornings. It means schoolchildren will not just have a story to hear, but a place to stand. Local guardianship has already made a significant impact. The man called Garafinha, once notorious for ripping gallery forests to sell firewood, now greets visitors and nudges them away from perching on the monoliths. Fourth graders grow up into high school docents. Radio talk shows learned how to say laterite and ariste without swallowing syllables. The circle began to live the way a good museum lives, as a conversation that outlasts any one guide. Call Rego Grande an observatory and you are not wrong, only incomplete. Call it a necropolis and you are not wrong, only incomplete. The pits with lateral chambers speak of careful funerary craft. The offerings clustered around monoliths say votive without needing translation. The solstice and equinox alignments write season in stone. The archaeologists who map the ring have been careful to remind us what we do not know and what we may never know in full. Every interpretation is a doorway. Behind it are others. Excavation is not the past. It is a narrow window into a house larger than our field notes. The site begs for an elder to explain its cosmology. The way the sky is a roof stitched to the ground by ritual. The way a broken bowl is not trash but a sentence finished. The way stones can be persons who carry memory. The written voices from before the conquest are almost none. But absence of text does not mean absence of intention. The choices are all here, in granite and clay. Where to set a slab, what angle to lean, which months to measure, whom to bury, what to break and place and cover. The grammar is here even when the words have gone. Step into the ring and the rest of the savannah falls away. Some stones rise like faces, others slouch like shoulders. The slab with the hole frames a needle of granite in the middle distance. The composition shifts with your stride until the circle teaches you the lesson that a monument is not a still life. It is choreography for the body that moves through it. In the dry season, the grass is brittle and white. In the rains, the hill turns green and shining. The stones sweat to near black, and the paths between them go slick underfoot. You are careful where you step. The dead are near, and the living have promises to keep. If you are lucky enough to stand here in late December, you will feel the sun's weight before you see its trick. The lancing stone marks the sunrise. Your eyes fill with that ridiculous equatorial blue, and then water at the heat. By late afternoon, the shadow eater does its act. North and south equally lit, as if even compass points agreed to a truce. The effect is less spectacle than confirmation. Someone knew this would happen. Someone needed it to happen. Whether it was to time a planting, to announce a feast, to call the names of ancestors, or all of these braided together, that someone gave us a machine with no gears that still keeps time. The farther you look beyond the ring, the more it multiplies. A kilometer away, another circle. Across the savannah, smaller ones like echoes. Along the coast, rings ranging from a pair of markers to well over 100. None is a perfect copy. Each bends the rules and still speaks the language. So what is the mystery behind Brazil's Stonehenge? If you mean the scandal of how it came to be, there is no scandal, only skill and patience. These hands cut pits and heaved granite and trimmed angles, a people unafraid to make the landscape argue with the sun. Suppose you mean the thrill of a secret purpose. In that case, the answer is more generous than any single function. Observatory, cemetery, feast ground, court of alliances. If you mean the riddle of why it still works, it is because stones, once taught, keep their lessons, and the sky obliges. If you mean who will guard it now, listen to the schoolyard, the radio, the small museum in Macapá, and the plans being inked in the capital. They are beginning at last to treat the ring as it always wanted, not as a curiosity, but as a civic obligation, a living classroom, a promise to the dead that the living will remember. And if you mean the mystery that will not be solved, it sits in the space between what archaeology has already shown and what no trowel can extract. There is a mercy in that. A circle of stone is not a solved equation, but a practice, and practices are kept alive by repetition. The line of the equator will not fade. The sun will continue to find its appointed holes and edges. The grass will burn and green again, and on certain mornings, if you stand very still and squint just so, you will feel the old people looking over your shoulder, Pleased that you found your way back. Muchas gracias. Thanks for trekking the hidden trails of Latin America with me. If tonight's story unsettled you, subscribe and ring the bell, because Latin America's darkest stories are far from over.